Thank you, everybody, for joining and for listening to my spiel. As Sarah said, I'm Jenny Hutchinson, and I work for the Graduate School of Business. I have been with the Graduate School of Business for 10 years now. Cannot believe it. That's the longest I've ever been anywhere. And it basically, my title doesn't really fully articulate what I do, but I'm basically the product manager for the site. And I run a team that manages site-wide content updates, publishing for the communications group, and overall content strategy in IEA. So I got the whole gamut there that really encompasses a little bit more articulately about what I do. Now, as a product manager of a website, this topic is really near and dear to my heart, forming a website roadmap. My intent and my hope is that by the end of this session, I will have imparted on you some really great tips and lessons learned along the way from my experience so that you can go and create your own roadmap a little easier. But before we start, by show of thumbs up, how many of you are developers, UX, front-end, back-end, QA folks? If you could just thumb up, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. And then how many of you are on the business side? That's business analysts, that's project managers, that's communicators, that's someone more like me who's like on the product management side. Okay, cool. Excellent. Okay. Well, the good news is there's going to be something in here for everybody. There's going to be something in here for for devs who might want to know, well, how do you participate and how do you show up for this process? And there's going to be a lot in there for the business sides of the business side folks who really need to know how to do things like, how do I get alignment? How do I do this? What are some of the things I need to watch out for? So I'm excited. Let's dive in. Okay. So if I can make it work, let's make it go. Here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to first start by giving you some background and context. That's going to be really helpful for you in understanding why we approached things the way we did and to understand what we were trying to solve. The second thing is we'll go into, well, what's our strategy? And that is, largely forming a roadmap, but we'll dive into it a little bit more. And then we'll get to the meat and potatoes, which is the process itself, and talk all about that. Now, feel free to post questions in the chat, Sarah, if you want to raise, let me know when there's questions along the way. That's great. We're also going to have some time at the end for questions as well. And I am more than happy to share whatever I have with you guys. So if you want to know what I came up with for criteria, if you want to see what my roadmap structure is in Airtable, if you want to see what our documentation, what questions we had for stakeholders, happy to share all of that with you. All right, so let's start with some background. The website for the Graduate School of Business, as I'm sure your website is too, is an incredibly crucial communications and marketing vehicle for the school. It's supposed to support the business of the school. That's what our website does. It is the front door of the school digitally, or as we like to call it, the digital home of the Graduate School of Business. More of any other ways that people engage with us is the website. You won't see as many people actually coming to campus. They actually engage with us on the website. And it is the primary source of information. If you want to know about our programs, if you want to know about research, if you want to know about our faculty, if you're an alum and you want to know how to engage with the school, the website's how you do it. And finally, it's a convening hub for some of our audiences, including how students can engage with alumni, how alumni can engage with us and engage with each other. So it serves an incredibly important role. It's actually more like 30 sites strung together, cross-connected in a unified resource. It has incredible power for the school. And yet, there's a miss. I am not joking. Ever since I've worked here, we have been doing some sort of large major project. We had, since 2012, have been working on what I like to call the bones of the site. From 2012 to about 2016, 2017, we were working on what we called revamp. The first phase was getting front page docs into a content management system, not structured, just in it. We then strategically selected sections to revamp its IA, create content types, views, and fieldable panel panes for each one, and then launch those in phases. And it wasn't really until about mid-2016 that everything was fully in the content management system, leveraging content types, leveraging views, fully functional features for how we can lay out content on the site, making it a unified and cross-connected environment. And then we had a sad moment where for 18 months, we didn't have any developers. Our friend Greg Mercer, who I don't know if you know, he was there, but he had other projects to work on. So there was really very little support for the public site during that time. They're like, you've got your site, you're done. And that's important to note because we still face that today in a sense. But eventually we got some developers in-house. Jen was one, our front-end developer, and we had another guy join us. And then Greg was able to join us a little bit more time so that we could start again on projects. And we chose strategically at that time to redo our homepage, which was definitely needed a redesign. We needed to provide for our stakeholders a way to tell big, beautiful stories about specific people. That would help people see themselves here and want to engage with our programs, join us, apply, all that wonderful thing. And then we also needed to update our menus and our section banners. So that took a huge chunk of time. And then we went right into Drupal 8 migration, which ended in March of 2021. Now, since then, we've still been working on kind of cleanup from our MVP launch. There's a lot of stuff that didn't get into that. But it was that point, what came out of this, and here's kind of the net, as we're working on the bones of the site, stakeholder needs kept going up. And we have a huge, giant gap that we need to meet. And we needed a plan for how we're going to do it. Not only that, but once we got done with Drupal 8, we were like, okay, we've got the foundations in place. Where do we want to take this site? Now, I don't know if any of you face this, but I get super tired of hearing, well, Harvard has it. Wharton has it. Well, Booth is doing this. Well, that's great. You know, I would love to do that too. In fact, I want to be a leader. I want our site to be a leader among our peer schools, not a follower. So how do we do that? What do we need to do to get there? Well, one of the things we did is we looked at our what we think the site should do and how it should behave. And one is it needs to support the school wisely. It needs to support the business wisely. And that will come, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. It also needs to delight our target audiences. It needs to be engaging and compelling for them. And we can only do that if we have a modern website experience, if we are a leader and not a catch-up-er. So what we thought was really important to get to that place is, one, it has to remain a unified communications footprint. We have to be able to have consistent content. We need to make sure that it's all in one place and fully representing the school from an institutional view. It has to be cross-connected, and we need the features that allow us to continually and easily update it. We also, obviously, need to manage the technology well. So we need to have some sort of cadence of innovation that, one, helps us kind of get through this, huge backlog that we've got. We also need to figure out what's going to take us to the next step. How do we iterate? How do we evolve? Because these large projects that we've been doing are not cutting it, and they're not helping us. We also need to look at opportunities for scaling. So if we know that somebody needs something, how could we possibly scale it to meet multiple needs of different stakeholders? In addition, we want to look at limiting customization. We customized the crap out of things. And, oh, Sarah, do you want to say something?
I didn't mean to interrupt you mid-sentence.
No, go ahead.
You were just talking about stakeholders, and we do have a question for Christina in chat, and that is, how many stakeholders does gsb.stanford.edu have in your development cycle?
We have 16 different stakeholders that we work with, departments, which translates into, I have about 16 different point people, more than 40 authors who are on the site from each of those total from those departments who are working on it. Yeah, that's what I say. Okay, so going back to this, we also want to limit customization because we were customizing the crap out of anything, and that makes it really hard to support those things when you're updating core and you're updating modules. And then finally, we want to strategically select and prioritize the work that we're doing. That's how we support the business of the school wisely, not just taking every little thing that everybody wants to do as, how they define it. We need to be selective. Okay, so we have pent up demand. We know we have a vision of where we want to go, but guess what? There's some challenges on the road ahead. The first is capacity. I've already talked a little bit about it. We don't have adequate resources to do all this work. We need to elevate the importance of the site with our senior leaders so that they will ensure that there is ongoing investment in the website. And I'll talk a little bit about, please remind me, but I'll talk a little bit about an analogy that helped us with that. The second is priority. Right now, what we work on is driven by who screams the loudest. And I don't know about you, but I am tired of being in that place. I want to work on the things that bring value and maximize value for the site and adopt a strategic perspective so that we are looking at where we're going and how do we get there and what that project is and how it's going to move the needle. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we accomplish our vision? How do we get through this backlog? How do we move the site forward? And how do we get the resources that we need in order to do it? Our answer was forming this roadmap. So let's align on what we mean by that. We're talking in my terms, what we're thinking about it is a 2-year strategic plan. This isn't the depths of requirements and specific needs for every single one. It's just, what do we need to do? It is based on stakeholder and user needs. It's collaboratively designed, meaning there's going to be people involved working alongside me, working alongside IT to build this out and to move it forward. And it's a living doc. It is going to change, and that will affect your process. So why? Well, again, we need to secure those resources. We needed a way to involve people into the decision making. So instead of someone coming to me and say, this is the solution I want, we have a process by which we can back that up to what the need is and then offer the right solution based on our knowledge and expertise in web experience, in web design and experience and all the different things about web. We also need to increase transparency. There are so many stakeholders who are frustrated with the fact that I asked for this 3 years ago, why don't I have it? And when will I get it? Just tell me when. Well, we got to answer that question. And then finally, we need to create some accountability. Really, we got to put our noses to the grindstone and look up and say, did we do what we said we were going to do? Okay, now the fun stuff, the process. How did this happen? 7 simple steps is how it happened. The overview is we convened a web advisory group. We conducted discovery. We defined our assessment criteria. We conducted our assessment. We then estimated. We got our buy-in, and then we shared it with the world. Now, you will notice that I used a circle and not a line. And I'm going to touch on why in the very last slide. But for those of you who need, that's a lot of steps, how am I going to remember that? Just remember SDEEBS. If you want an acronym, SDEEBS. It doesn't mean anything, and it made me laugh when I did it, so SDEEBS, there you go. So let's do it. It still makes me laugh because I'm a dork. All right, so the first step, convening your web advisory group. Why do you want to do this? Well, you want to have a group of senior leaders who are your executive support for a program for this whole thing. If you don't have it, you will not be successful. That may look very different for you in your school. That might look like different people, but for us, as a formula school who has its own IT department, we're not working with Stanford Web Services, we're kind of our own little island. We needed to make sure that our senior leaders are involved and advocating for us. So why? Well, 2 reasons. They are going to advocate up with our dean and our senior associate deans to say, hey, we're behind this plan and you need to fund it. They're also going to influence down to their departments and say, everybody, this is the plan. We are behind it. You need to support it. And when they come to you saying they're ready to work on your feature, work on it. So how do we do this? Well, I focused on minimizing the number of engagements that we had to have, and focused on what I called meeting milestones. So a meeting for every milestone. We had a kickoff. We had one to review the assessment criteria to get their buy-in on that. We had one for the draft roadmap and the process to kind of bring them along in the thinking. And then we had one for, here's our presentation for how we're going to go to the dean for resources to get their buy-in. Now, what worked well was that we leveraged pre-conversations, and I strongly suggest that you do this. When you identify those people that you want to engage as your web advisory group, have coffee with them. Talk about what you're trying to do. Talk about why it's important that they're involved. Talk about what your expectation is and how you can help and how it will help them. That way, when you start the process, they are in and they can help convince others to participate. Now, this one's a good one. So you want to involve someone who's either a naysayer, a party pooper, or a contrarian. Because one, if someone is thoroughly dissatisfied, if you have a stakeholder who's just like, I'm done, you guys haven't met my needs, I'm going to build my own sites on Stanford sites. We love Stanford sites. We personally don't want everything going off in all these multiple fragmented experiences for the GSB, but we want to instead have a unified web experience. So if you have one of those folks, include them, because one, you might be able to convince them along the way that what your plan is going to work and going to eventually meet their needs. And two, you're going to have other supporters who will help you do that. And I saw it work, and it was great. Now, what we learned was senior leaders don't know what they don't know. And this is going to be important. I'll talk about it in a few slides. But this can be a stumbling block in the whole process. So I'm going to pause on that, and then I'll come back to it. All right, discovery. So the next phase is conducting discovery with your stakeholders. And it's important to understand from their perspective what their business goals are, what they think they need from the site in order to meet those business goals, and what their users need. And the reason is because they have specific ideas. They know their business, they know their audiences, and we have to trust that that they know that information. And if they do have specific ideas, well, we need to understand what those are and work around them. So how we approached this was we elected a point person for each department. And this is someone that I had a great, strong working relationship with, who could then help wrangle everybody within the department, all the different teams, gather all the different needs and inputs, complete the questionnaire that we had, and then work with me to get clarity on those. Which leads to the next point. We created a questionnaire that we sent to every single person. It was consistent across the different teams, what we asked, and had them fill it out in advance of the actual discovery sessions. Once I got that information back, I then reviewed it with the dev team. And I said, okay, tell me what questions you have. What do we need to find out at a high level that's missing from this doc in order for us to give a ballpark assessment of what we think it's going to take? And then that's where you use your discovery sessions to get that clarity, to align on questions, to make sure that you have a true understanding of everything that they're thinking about in terms of web. Now, what worked well? One of the things that we did is we asked them to prioritize the need. So out of the 10 things that you want, rank them. Tell me what's most important. That showed me where on the things that I knew I couldn't budge when planning it into the roadmap and the things that I could negotiate on. And then the second thing is capture your KPIs. How are you going to measure success? Because if you are going to advocate and request funding, you're going to need to show what the value is. How successful are the features that you're implementing in making change or accomplishing business goals? So it's really important to get those KPIs from their perspective. And what we learned, well, very important. Maybe you guys do this. I didn't. But immediately after your session, go through your notes and make sure that what you typed up, what was inputted in there makes sense. And then add whatever else you remember that you're going to need. Because when you come back to the assessment part, you're going to need a clear understanding of what they said. So clean it up. add in your context, organize it, make sure it's all clear, so that you don't forget it. Christina.
I was muted, apologies. Regarding the prioritization, or are you talking about like a forced ranking, or something a little bit more human friendly? Can you give us a sense of what that looked like?
It's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep.
So forced ranking.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So then we need to define our criteria. And this is, what are you going to use to assess each need within this aggregated list that you've got? And you want to do it because, one, you need to ensure that you're going to have consistency and objectivity in your assessments. So you could end up, your most important groups, exec ed, MBA for us, the ones that bring in the money, right? They could dominate the roadmap with all their features. But if you kind of take a step back and look at everything with objectivity and with a clear set of criteria that you use for every single one, it's going to give you a more sound roadmap of priorities. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing I did is I just wrote down what I thought those criteria would be. I then looped in my devs. I said, tell me what I'm missing. What are we missing? What do we need to include for how we assess what to work on? I then took it to leadership, my CMO, and I said, what am I missing? You've worked on the site. Tell me what I'm missing. What do we need to include? And then finally, we got buy-in from our advisory group on that criteria. And quite frankly, they actually had different opinions about what we should be prioritizing for. And so that was a good test of our thinking. So what worked well? Preparing a list for others to react to. If you go into a meeting and you want to brainstorm, that's great and all, but it's a little faster if you can come to the table with what you might know would be great ways of assessing a project based on your experience. The other thing is, for each one, listing up some questions that you can ask, that your team will ask as part of the assessment. For example, business impact is our number one criteria. It is the most important criteria for how we prioritize things in the roadmap. How does it support the business goals of the department? How does it support the business goals of the school in general? Does it increase revenue? Does it decrease costs? Does it increase efficiency? Does it reduce man hours? Does it help us communicate with our stakeholders better? What are those little levers that it will pull in order to make a business impact? And what we learned is one of the things that we were kind of keeping as a criteria is, does it have a time constraint? And what our web advisory group said was, that's not a criteria. CMC could have something, Career Management Center, could have something that is absolutely dire that they get done by March. But if that is going to push something that is a feature that would benefit multiple stakeholders, that's not really the reason why. And we might want to think of different ways of solving that. Okay, so then we're going to assess. And this is a really fun part. You are going to assemble your team of devs. You're going to sit down in a number of sessions, and you're going to assess, you're going to run each one of these needs through the criteria. And you want to take this step, obviously, because you need to get a priority. But one of the things we observed is that there are some things in your needs that you get through discovery that are not one-to-one translatable features. So for example, I hear a lot, search sucks, please fix it. They don't know what it means to fix it. So we as the dev team need to say, these are the things that we are going to do to fix search. And that didn't always translate into a one-to-one feature. It was, okay, well, first we're going to work on the platform for site-wide search. And then we're going to work on the functionality for view sites, for view search. And then we're going to work on, what do we need to do specifically for research to improve its discoverability through search? So it ended up being 3 different things in the roadmap that we can move around to iterate. So what we did is we planned out a number of sessions. We ended up having 50 different things in our roadmap that were tech features. There were also a bunch of content projects that fell into the content area, but we're focusing more on the IT stuff. So you're going to review your notes on what people said. What did they ask for? What is the, why is it important to them? What is it going to accomplish? And then you're going to run it through the assessment, get everybody acclimated on what the ask is, and then assess it per the criteria. You're then going to score it. So for example, business impact was one of ours. We had, I think, 7 different criteria under business impact. If you gave it a score of 1 to 4, how well did something ladder up to that? You could check off, does it do increase revenue? Okay. Does it increase efficiency? Great. Does it help us communicate better? Awesome. Okay. Well, that's probably more like a 3 out of 4 or a 4 out of 4 versus something that, I don't know, only improves efficiency. And then you're going to prioritize based on those scores that you give all of your projects. So what worked out? Well, planning out the working sessions in advance and setting a goal. It made it fun. It made it more like a game. So if I have a working session, I'm like, okay, guys, we're doing 10 items. We have 60 minutes, 6 minutes per item. Set the timer, let's go. And it became a kind of a fun exercise of assessing things. It also helped us go with our gut. And that was important because our guts often tend to be right. Now, what do you need to watch out for? Decision fatigue. If you're doing 50 different things and you're assessing 50 different items in a roadmap and you've got 7 different questions across like 1 criteria and you've got 3 other ones that you're assessing, you're going to get tired. You're going to start getting fatigued and not making such great decisions. So watch for it. And if you do get that, then, make sure to have a final session to review all of your priority. Sarah.
Yeah, so in chat, Bernardo has a question about how did you reduce the burden and redundancy of meetings? And did you look at it from a tech lead perspective who becomes a manager or from a people manager that has to rely on a team lead and go back and forth a lot?
But in our meetings, we had the tech lead, we had the business analyst, and Naveen. And I'm not really sure how to describe Naveen's role, but he knows a lot about the site. And we kind of agreed that we need, exactly, I don't know what he does, but he does a lot. So that was a core group that did it. And I will also say this, I invited my CMO and my CIO to join us. Now they popped in every now and then just to see what we were doing and to kind of like, oh, look under the hood, how's it going? They didn't, but that made them feel good. And so it was basically, how many things do we have to do? How many meetings is it going to take us? And how long do we think we can do it? And it was basically, we took our first meeting, saw what we could get through in a reasonable amount of time, and then built out all the rest of the meetings. Does that answer the question?
Bernard has asked another question on who makes the final call on items when they're controversial or equally balanced. So we had
yes,
the tiebreaker call.
Yes. So we as a group aligned on what we were going to put forth as the decision, right? So here's an example. Chatbot, which is something that exec ed, MBA, MSX, PhD all want. And horizontal navigation, which is something we know everybody wants, and they, every other site has it, so we got to do it. Those were both very equal in scoring. But we knew from a technical priority and just in discussing, talking with our stakeholders, look, we need to do this one first, which was horizontal navigation, that's what we all agreed to do. So it was kind of a joint decision, but then we took it to the web advisory group, which we'll talk about in the buy-in stage, and they have a perspective and a point of view as well. Okay. Now we're going to estimate. So at this point, you've got a laundry list of prioritized things, but you still don't have a roadmap because now you got to consider size and time. So you got to think about what is it going to take per feature, and I refer to feature as anything in the roadmap, to accomplish it, and how much can you actually do within your time frame. So we have 50 things. There's no way we're going to be able to do all of those in 2 years. There's just no way. So what can we actually do? And that's the question you're trying to answer. So how we did another series of sessions. So you can imagine that with assessment and estimation, that took us about 2 months because we wanted to space them out. We have other work we're doing. We wanted to prevent that decision fatigue. We gave ourselves some time. So we scheduled another group of working sessions, and we did a high-level estimation. This is your t-shirt size, small, medium, large, gigantic size that you would buy for the get-along shirt for your kid size, okay? And then you would then go in and look at, okay, what are, per function, the amount of, the size, the amount of time you think you're gonna spend on it for project management, for communicating with stakeholders, for aligning on designs and UX, for front-end work, back-end work, and QA, for content work that needs to happen as a result of releasing the feature. And all these things. And then you kind of compare the two. Okay, you had this t-shirt size, and then you have like, okay, these are more specific estimates. And in total, do those two things match? It's a good gut check to have. But then that allows you to say, all right, knowing what our capacity is, we can actually accomplish for one large project, 16 small and medium-sized projects, and maybe some operational little tiny things along the way. So what worked well? Well, the first thing is you need to make sure you know what your capacity is. So for each sprint, we said we're going to dedicate a percentage to large projects. We're going to dedicate a percentage to small and medium projects. We're going to dedicate a percentage to production issues, operational activities like core updates, module updates, all that kind of fancy stuff. And then also a little other bucket of meetings and requirements and all that kind of stuff. So then you can get a per hour, per sprint estimation of how much time you have in your total roadmap for each one of those things. Then you compare that to the total hours that you put together for each item in the roadmap, and there, Bob's your uncle, you've got an idea of what you can get done. Now, what did we learn? The first thing is go with your gut. You're not going to be right. You're not going to be right all the time. And the reason you're not going to be right all the time is because you're going on high level information. You haven't dove into those requirements, into the nitty gritty interactions and what content are we going to need and how many design revisions are we going to do, and have we done the accessibility testing? You haven't done any of that. So you're probably going to be wrong once you start diving in there, and you're going to have to do some adjustments. But again, this is a living document, and you're going to set that expectation that it is. The key is to let people know that. So as you're working with your web advisory group, hey, look, this is back of the napkin estimates. This is what we anticipate based on our best knowledge of what it is, but know that it could change when we get into the work. Oops. Okay, that's not working. There we go. All right, now we're close. We're getting close. Ooh, Sarah.
Quick question on estimates from Christina, and that is, does housekeeping factor into your roadmap estimates, or is it in a separate roadmap?
That would be what we call operational activities. And so it's kind of like, all the little junk that you need to do to make sure the site's working, so that you can focus on roadmap items, but we did keep it separate. One more point about how we broke up the time for our sprints. So knowing that we had this tendency of allowing large projects to dominate our work, what we wanted to do was make sure that we had a way of working on large transformational projects that were going to take a really long time, but know that we were going to do them slower so that we had capacity for a cadence of innovation. It was really important for us to make sure that we built that in. And so now we had a way, we kind of formed this way of being able to say, look, we could conceivably get this huge, large project of horizontal navigation done in a year, but because we're going to be working all these other things, we're giving ourselves a year and a half. And that was something that, again, to meet that stakeholder need and to continue to iterate, we had to carve out the time in our sprints for that. All right, so why do we need to align with our advisory group on our roadmap? Well, it's obviously because we need to make sure that they feel confident about what they're advocating for. Now, this required sharing our roadmap and the process. Yeah, Sarah.
Sorry, I don't have a question. I think I just forgot to put my hand down.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought that was a new hand. So it's going to be really important that they hear about the roadmap so they know what they're talking about. So what did we do? Well, we presented to the roadmap. We had a meeting to talk about it and to show them all the great work and thinking that went behind it. So what went well? Well, at the end of the meeting, they're like, well, that is great. You put in a ton of work and all that sounds extremely logical and kudos to you, but we have no idea what that stuff is. So they don't know what they don't know. So what we learned we had to do was to go back to key stakeholders and get their buy-in. So, for example, Dave Weinstein is the head of exec ed. Ryan Price reports to him. She's the director of marketing. I work with her quite a bit on all website needs. So she's a person who understands what these features are and why they're asking for them. So I had to meet with her to say, okay, Ryan, this is the roadmap. This is our thinking. This is what we did. Here's where all your stuff lands in the roadmap. Please tell Dave to support it. And so Dave then said, yes, I will support this. I will advocate for funding and I will tell the deans that this needs to happen. Put that into your process ahead of time because again, they don't know what they don't know. All right, so you've got a roadmap. It's blessed. You're done. So go and share it. You got to tell people again, we want to increase that transparency. We want to have some accountability and we want to demonstrate how the site, give them hope and give them confidence that the site will eventually start meeting their needs. We're going to chip away at it. We're going to reduce that backlog of needs. We're going to start innovating on things they're not even asking for. It's going to get better. You're creating hope. How did we do this? Well, we have an intranet, MyGSB, and I put a link to our roadmap onto that site and said, here's an email to all my people, go look at it. What works well? Well, we've got a done complete roadmap and people are informed, but people don't read and they don't seek out information. So guess what you need to do now? You need to evangelize. You need to take people to lunch or coffee and talk about what you're doing and tell them how it impacts them and tell them how they can support it so that they know, one, they can, when they are going to be looped and roped into helping on the roadmap and when their stuff is going to get done. But you're not done yet. You're not done. Remember, this is a living document. So you got to refresh it. And for us, that looks like about every 6 months. Why? Well, new technology comes out. Your competitors are doing other things. The business needs might change as you're going along and working your plan. As you're completing things, your stakeholders might find, oh, this is doing such a good job. I really don't need that thing that I asked for that's later on down the roadmap. So you have to make sure that you're checking in with the stakeholders, you're looking at the landscape, you're thinking about the things that you strategically want to implement on the site and revise. So how do you do that? Well, you take the 7-step process and you trim it down a little bit and there you go forward. So you're going to, again, do your check-ins. Start asking questions. What do you need? How have things changed? Look at how this thing is impacting your business. Isn't that great? What can come off the roadmap? And with any new needs, you're going to define what those are, assess them, and estimate them. You're going to fold it all into the roadmap again, and then you're going to go get buy-in again. Now, my hope is that, well, first of all, we haven't gone to this yet. We're still waiting for our budget, right? And so I haven't even had a chance to work my plan yet. We're going to start doing this, but my hope is I don't have to go back to all my key stakeholders and do that part. I can just say, hey, web advisory group, this is how it's changed and this is why. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that's kind of what I'm hoping will be, is that we'll get buy-in and then we can share it out once more, and everybody will have a sense of how the roadmap changes over time. So, questions. What do you have for me? What can I tell you? Christina.
If no one's frustrated with listening to me all the time. Question, do you have any kind of, what's your approach to the order in which you tackle features within a specific sprint? Are you going with the big, hairy, ugly thing first, or maybe quick wins? Any kind of thoughts on that?
So we've carved out percentage of hours for each one. So for a large project, we're going to do one large project at a time. So the first one the first large project is going to be our focus of that chunk of capacity for a sprint. Then our priority, our roadmap tells us for small and medium projects, what we work on first for small and medium ones. So as an example, what we call registration finder, which is not technically a registration finder, but I digress. That is one of our first things. And we know it's going to take 30 hours to work on that once we have designs in. So 30 hours of dev work, right? Let's just say 30 hours. So we have capacity still left for something else. And so we'll choose the second one. And we'll put in tickets that line up to those capacity, that percentage of capacity, so that we can work on all of it. All of those things in the first part of the roadmap.
I promise, last question for me. You said something about an analogy that you use.
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. Okay, so this was a really cool way for us to help influence our senior leaders to buy into supporting the funding, continual funding for the site. So our dean, one of the first things that he came in and did was meet with our operations, our COO, and said, look, we need to find a way of having a percentage of budget that we will use to maintain and beautify our campus. And knowing that, my CMO had the amazing idea of, well, okay, well, let's compare this. Let's actually compare this. This is our digital home. You can't just build the home and then let it go to ruin. Just as you need to paint walls and you need to fix broken staircases and you need to update technology in your conference rooms, you're going to have to do the same thing for your site. In fact, you're going to have to do it more often because tech changes. Yes, Paige, exactly. So you're going to have to, it's the same thing. And that is why it's so important. You're never done. I get really excited about this. Sorry, guys. Very intense.
We have a question from Bernardo who asks, how many tech leads do you have?
One amazing tech lead, Greg Mercer. He has stepped up in so many ways. He was just one of our devs, but now he is the lead and he's amazing. He's been such a great thought partner. Yep, G. Mercer. Gotta love him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we have one more question that is about the budget. So the budget request, they're asking, was the budget request in addition to routine budget? So for example, for consultants, hiring extra staff, software, hardware.
Yes, so our budget ask ended up being dollars for UX and UX, design, front end, and QA, and some back end, quite frankly. So we needed to have dollars to work with our contractors to do this work. In addition, I need some help, you guys. It's me running this monkey show. So I need somebody to help me with the day-to-day management of the sprints, making sure the requirements are complete for our devs, making sure the designs are accessible. They've got the designs, making sure they have everything they need to build this stuff. And then to help me report out to people on what we're doing and how are these things having an effect on the site. I need help. And so we asked for a permanent headcount that's some sort of like web development project manager, I don't even know what we're going to call it, to do that work for me and to help me out with that, because it's just too much for one person. I don't do nearly enough stakeholder communication. I don't do nearly enough forward-thinking planning. So I need to be freed up to do that. How frequently do you release? Every 3 weeks. So we have 16 sprints during a year, and then that kind of breaks out down to, you know, per track of work into an hourly amount. And how do you communicate with stakeholders on the process? Okay, so I'm trying different things. This is a test and iteration as well. I have Airtable, and I am happy to share it. Let me share it really quick. So I'm gonna just escape out of here, and I'll go to my roadmap and show you what it looks like. This is everything in the roadmap right here. This is all the tech features, and it shows what the name is. Here's its total score. Here's what we put in for the business needs, a description of the solution, how we're going to measure success. It shows how we've actually scored each one based on the criteria, their sizes, their actual hours per function. And then this is like resources required, which that ended up not being helpful at all. But what I've done is I've created views of this so that I can share those out with people. And then I'll either Slack them and say, hey, we've got an update. Here's what we're doing. And so I've got the work, which is what's in our current sprint, what has been completed, and gosh, well, has anything moved out because we didn't estimate quite accurately. They all have links to all this, and every single time I have a sprint release, I send out the links and they're updated and they get a thing to look at. And again, I got to talk to people. I got to go have those conversations. I got to go evangelize. I got to go do those things, have those conversations.
That's a ton of manual work. I applaud you for that. Just a two-part question to follow up on that one. Any thoughts on automation on this? Because
yes.
And also, does it make sense to you? Because if you have to go talk to those people and have those contextual conversations, does it actually make sense to automate? Or is this a people person job through and through?
Well, I think it's both. I think you need both. There are going to be people who are too busy to talk to you and who don't want to have conversations, who want to drill down and look at it. You're going to have those people. And you're also going to have the people who are like, just tell me the bottom line. Just tell me March, April, May, what is it? And so you have to be able to do both. Now for automations, I have in my roadmap an automation to pull from Jira into this Airtable. So I don't have to do that manually because that is a big pain in the butt. I'm not even kidding. I hate it. I hate it. And then two, a second automation is, can I do some sort of Slack automation of like, hey, this ticket's closed. Hey, you're up on this one. You've got to go test it. You got to go look at it. So that we don't have to rely so much on our 1970s tech email. Because Lord, I hate email. I hate it. It's the worst. But yes, we need to, this is a learning and iterative process, okay? It's gonna take time for me to figure out like, what works? I don't know. But yeah, I do believe you need both. You need to have those conversations and build those relationships, and then also give them a place where they can go and poke around if they wanna poke around. Okay, so overall, we have about 18 million page views a year, and we have about 4.5 million users. Does Airtable make it significantly easier for you to use? And oh, yes, yeah. So here's a really important thing to note. Your stakeholders do not want to go to Confluence. They do not want to look at Jira. They do not want to see all that under the hood. They want to get a pretty view, a summary, a beautifully presented thing that tells them what's in there, right? Their information and what they need to know is very different from what you need as a developer. And so as you're thinking about what information do you provide, you need to think about what they need to know, the what, the so what, and the now what. So what do they need to know? What's most important? So what? Okay, why is that important to them? And then now what? What happens next? Or what do you need from them in order to get it done? Yes,
we have
Steph.
time for one more question.
On the question, the automation question that Shay had, is that something that can be done in Kapost?
Possibly, yes. So Kapost is something that we use for content work and kind of content projects that we have going on. And yes, we are looking to do automations with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You know what? Thank you, you guys, for listening to me. Thank you for your time. If you would like to see any of these resources, or I'm happy to share them. Yes, I will share the slideshow, and I will append it with links to all these things so that you can kind of poke around and see them. No problem. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So Jenny, how can we as other Stanford departments support your efforts, your gargantuan efforts?
Oh gosh, thank you. You know what? Testify. Support this effort. Don't take your sight off. Go work with Jenny and the devs. Ooh, that's our band name, Jenny and the devs. Ready to work. Go work with us. They're going to get the site to where you need it to be. Awesome. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. See ya.
All right, everybody come off mute and give Jenny a big hand. Yay. Thanks for everything, Jenny. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
We had tons of people saying thank you in the chat as they were
on
their way out. So
awesome.
All kinds of good vibes.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. See you in the
Bye.
upcoming sessions.